All right. Bonus episode today. Chainlink Sports came at you guys with 2 episodes in 1 week, and I wanted to treat you with this guy, David Griffin. He plays for the Gary South Shore Railcats. Did I say it right? We just went over that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Perfect.
You're right.
So, indie ball team, a part of the American Association, and he went to Curry College, which is a Division III school, and now he is in professional baseball trying to get signed by a MLB organization. And interesting story about him is that he came to my school. Well, he didn't come to my school, but he came to work out with my team in the winter for college, and he was throwing against us, and I'm catching him. And he's throwing pretty hard, whatever. He's doing good. And then, I hop out. He's all done. My coach goes to me, he goes, Nico, like, where do you think he was at? I was like, he's throwing pretty hard. I was like I'd give him 94. He maxed out at, like, probably sitting like 90, 92. And he shows me the radar gun. This guy hit 98 miles an hour. And that was the first time he ever did that, right?
Yeah, I mean, to this day, I think the gun was a little juiced up a little bit. Because, I've maybe hit 94 once or twice in a game. I mean, I can count on my fingers how many times I've hit it. But,
right.
Definitely it's something felt that day where the ball was just coming out of my hand really good. So I don't know if it was just adrenaline and just not thinking. But,
yeah.
Some of you guys will still get some good barrels, like, for fouling it off on 2 strikes. So that's how I was kind of like, I'm not sure. I was saying 98, but everything did feel hard when I was throwing it.
Right. Listen, I'm gonna say you threw 98 because that was pretty cool when he showed me the radar gun, and he swears by that radar gun too. So we're gonna go with that. And listen, even if it wasn't 98, you might have been like 95, 96, something like that. So the whole point why I bring that up is kind of like your progression. You kind of, and we're gonna get into that in a second, but kind of you started out at a D3 school, now you're going into professional baseball. So the first question I want to ask you is what was that decision-making process like, going from Curry and then deciding to take that path to independent baseball?
Yeah. So basically, like, by the time I was graduating Curry, one of your college teammates, Jose, he saw me as a senior. Like, I was kind of banged up a little bit. I was coming off or I had an injury, and so into that spring, I was kind of like pretty banged up where my pronator, my elbow, I couldn't throw a baseball unless the day I pitched. So I'd have like 1,000 milligrams of ibuprofen all lathered up, and literally I would not throw, like, I wouldn't practice until the day I pitched. And it got to the point where I was so banged up that by the time I graduated, I had to completely rest. There was hopes for me to, like, try to get signed or drafted or other indie ball teams to reach out, but like I said, I couldn't even bend my elbow straight. So it got to the point where it was like, okay, for my future, like, I need to rest.
Right.
And so it was a tough decision for me to walk away from the game, because I actually was with a team did bring me out, and I was kind of trying out with them, but I was only 84 to 86 at the time. But, like, I was still trying to play injured and try to not be like the hero, but, like, show, like, hey, I'm tough, I can do this. Like I mastered my way through college. Like, I was able to play injured and still maintain success. So
right.
I was thinking that I could translate that over, but obviously that's not the case. Where if I start off on the bad foot here, like, no one really knows who I am and what I did back in college. So trying to get off to the right foot was the most important thing. So I made the tough decision to actually walk away and go home and retire for a bit, which I kind of threw all that out the window, saying, like, hey, like, it's time for me to kind of grow up. If it's meant to be, it'll meant to be. Like, if I ever fall back into baseball, I'll fall back into baseball. But it was time for the next step and next chapter of my life. And from there, I decided to work full time in sales for a bit and kind of just see, like, what it was like to actually, like, have a summer to myself and, like, not be so focused on something else other than baseball. Because growing up, I was playing baseball every day in the summer since I was 8 years old. So I never had a summer to myself, where I never had actual time to myself where I wasn't having sports around me. So that was a big adjustment. So I had to experience what that was like. And obviously, as that was going on, it didn't help where the Red Sox, my favorite sports team, was having a historical season, World Series type of year, and just watching the playoff run, like, got the competitive juices flowing again for me. So at that point, I was like, okay, like, I do miss baseball. I know I want to play, but what do I got to do to go from here? And and it was tough to try to balance a 40-hour work week job and still trying to work out and rehab my arm because I still have moments with my elbow where if I was like sitting on it too long or like if I was writing too much or typing too much, like it would start to act up again. Where like I would feel like kind of throbbing pains in my knuckle, and I was like, okay, like this isn't good. So it actually took around Christmas time in 2018. I actually got hurt on the job where I was loading something up to a truck and it fell and it landed on an ankle where it was actually the ankle that I broke my junior year of high school, which kind of started the whole domino process of me becoming a pitcher because I missed my whole junior season of high school, and I actually committed to a college to play baseball before even playing a varsity inning of high
Wow.
school.
Okay.
So that's and the only time like when I was in high school, I had the desire to play in college, but I obviously wasn't talented enough as a hitter, so that's when I kind of took up pitching because I was always a kid where I had a strong arm, and if they need a guy just to throw out there, they would just throw me out there.
Right.
So
Right.
I really learned how to pitch my senior year of high school, and that's kind of how I learned how to become a pitcher. And then now back to when I got hurt in the work job, it was I had to go to physical therapy. So I was like, okay, I might as well rehab my elbow at the same time because if I'm already there, I might as well take care of it as well.
Yeah.
So I was killing two birds with one stone. And the more I started rehabbing and I was out of work, I had more downtime because I was on workers' comp. And it just happened that one of my buddies was a baseball facility right down the street. I'd swing by to see how he was doing. And I was like, hey, like, I'm getting the craving to play again. And he was like, hey, like, let me know when you come in and I'll give you a cage space for free. If you want to use the weight room, you got to pay for that. That's fine. So I essentially just started going like 4 or 5 days a week to just in this little like small 60-foot cage, just start throwing to kind of get myself back into it. I kind of PT'd myself and rehab myself for a while. And I just
Right.
started buying in to go into the gym for the first time. And that's how I started to get stronger and everything like that. And then my fastball went up from 88 in college to 92, 93.
Was there ever a time where like
And
you were like, was there ever a time when you were when you made that decision to start playing again, and you kind of heard people say, like, "Oh, well, you only played D3. You're not one of these guys who are, big time school, big time prospect." Like, was that ever kind of something that people would say to you, or like a thought in your mind?
not really, because from the moment after my freshman year, I went into playing the Futures Collegiate League. Do
Yeah,
you know what that league is?
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so after my freshman year, I had a breakout freshman year where I was like 7-1 with like a 1.5 ERA. Like we went to the regionals for the first time in program history, got like our first NCAA win, and it was really kind of me coming like onto the scene.
Right,
And I actually went to the Futures League tryout, and the Futures League tryout itself, the teams are already made. So those guys that are going to the tryout are just like, hey, like if we need some guys later in the year, like we know who to call. So I went there, and it just happened that me and the guy that owns the gym that I go to now, we were two out of the three kids from that tryout to get signed to this one team, and that team was the only team to sign kids from that tryout, and we just happened to be in that team for the full season, which is crazy enough. And I
right,
mean, playing against like in the Futures League, I was playing against a lot of Division 1, Division 2 kids, anyways, and then we had moments where I ended up playing the Futures League for 3 years, one for Wachusett and then two more for Brockton. And when I was in Brockton, we actually scrimmaged the Wareham Gatemen twice when I was there. And I actually competed against some of those guys. Like I did well. And I actually had something lined up with Katuitt the summer of 2017 to head down there in the middle of the summer. But obviously politics kind of came into play. I was a Division 3 guy as well, and I needed to be perfect in all my outings. And I just had one bad outing, and then it became like, oh, like we want to bring him in. He's a Division 3 guy, not so sure. And
right.
that's when kind of politics came into play. But at the end of the day, like, I'm still a competitive person. Like I knew, like I went up against those guys that had success, and I was like, okay, like even though I'm a D3 guy, like, I know I can compete with the D1, D2 schools. So that
Absolutely.
was never in the back. That was never a problem for me. The issue was trying to get the connections.
Yeah.
That was half the battle.
Right.
But all the connections I really made, like now, it's like I kind of learned to myself or just through other people that I knew. But so I mean,
I
probably a
gotcha.
big help for me, like what got me into the indie ball was Chris Hall, the commissioner of the Futures League. So because I was in that league for 3 years, like him and I became really close. When probably around February 2019, like I reached out to him saying, hey, like I'm looking to play baseball again. He was like, oh, I'm surprised you're down spring training already. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, there's a league called the Baseball Scouting League. It's also ran by the same guy who does Meet a Prospect, and they're doing a showcase camp for any independent players trying to get ready for their own spring training or any independent free agent guys trying to get a contract. They're doing a camp down in Florida. I think they have limited spots left. I can reach out to them and see if I can get you a spot on there. And I was like, oh, that'd be awesome. And they ended up getting me a spot. So literally like a week later, I quit my sales job, drove down to Melbourne, Florida, and I stayed in a motel for 2.5 weeks, just for the whole entire camp. And I
Nice.
was one of like two guys out of that camp to get signed to a contract. So right then and there,
Wow.
I kind of knew, it was like, okay, if I have the ambition and I know I can compete still, it's just got to keep believing yourself and just keep trying to get better every day.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what driven me to kind of keep going now. And even to this day, like I'm still improving. I still have things to learn too, and still have things to improve on. So I'm just taking step by step every day to kind of get better, just like everyone else is.
So that takes like some balls to just quit your job and drive all the way down to Florida, and it's a good thing though. It's like because for you to be
Yeah,
one of the two guys to get signed, like that, it takes like the hard work, but then it takes like the confidence in yourself, because you're not like you were gonna get that like if you weren't fully sure that you knew that you were gonna be able to do that.
I mean, I wasn't entirely sure that I was gonna be able to pull it off. I mean, my mindset going in was okay, like if I was actually fully healthy, because every one of those summers that I played in the Futures League, I was burned out. I'd have 70 innings in college, and then I would go through another 50 or 60 innings in the summer. So by the time I came back to school for the next year, I already have 110, 120 innings accounted for the whole entire year.
Right.
So in my head, I was like, okay, like if I was actually like fully healthy, like how far could I go with this, or how good could I be? So
Yeah.
that's half the battle, trying to take care of my body. And once I started taking care of my body and everything, I started to see the results and going to the gym, because I didn't start really lifting uh, religiously until I graduated college. And once I started doing that, I went from graduating college at 175 to now pushing 200 pounds, sitting at 195 currently today. So even
Right.
just the 20-pound difference is huge. Not like, how it goes, mass equals gas. If you're
Yeah.
able to generate more force, you're able to throw harder.
Absolutely. So let's kind of fast forward to nowadays where we're in quarantine. What have you kind of been doing to stay sharp and to kind of be able to like you said, like keep your body healthy and making sure that you're kind of doing the best you can to be ready if there's any baseball this year?
Yeah, first thing foremost is definitely getting the proper sleep and rest. Like I'm trying to make sure I'm asleep by midnight at the latest, because I'm trying to focus on getting like 7 to 8, maybe 9 hours of sleep a night, because the biggest part for your body recovering is sleep.
Right.
It goes sleep, then nutrition, and then stretching, and then being active. Um, but yeah, mostly, I got diagnosed with the coronavirus a couple of days ago. But before that, I had a family or an old college teammate whose father owns a baseball facility near me, a different one that I would go to. So he was letting me go in, work out, and use the small gym. And I was working out 4 days a week. And then I would also be throwing on the little turf area as well. So I was still
Right.
staying very ready. But I mean, I'd be working on different things. I'd be throwing a bullpen once or twice a week. Um, Definitely just trying to fine tune everything, because I was already in mid-season form by the time I went down to March, or I went down to Florida in March, anyways.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those things that, like, you just gotta stay sharp, stay ready. Like you don't want to try to overdo all your bullets. So I'm somewhat still being cautious, but as of now, I'm just trying to rest and get myself ready for like the next whenever the season's gonna start.
Absolutely. So last question I want to ask you is what so I kind of had two parts to this question, but you already answered the first
Mhm.
part. I was going to ask you kind of like what advice would you kind of give to a pitcher, like a young pitcher right now? It's kind of like whether it's a high school or college that is trying to stay ready, whether they're looking to get recruited this summer or they're just looking to stay sharp in general. But you kind of said it, like, make sure you get the sleep, the nutrition, you're taking care of your body, which is definitely a great answer. But then what would you now say to somebody who is, again, like a younger pitcher who is looking to play professional baseball, like who's trying to like eventually move into that avenue? Because you have a pretty unique story with that.
You can always learn something. Keep your mind open at that point. Like most of the stuff that I learned from baseball, I learned more about baseball once I became a pitcher only when I got to college. Because if you think about this way, if say, like for an example, say if you're injured and you're just watching games, your mindset is completely different when you're active and you're sitting on the bench. Because when
Right.
you're injured, you don't have to be pouting about, oh, why aren't I in the starting lineup or anything like that. Where you're just, if you're injured, you're just analyzing and watching, and you're kind of trying to pick up on tendencies from the game. So once I became a pitcher only, my main thing was, yeah, I pitched one day, but the next 4 days I would just kind of try to pick up tendencies, analyze the game, and kind of go from there. And that kind of became, for me, like I became a more mature player, smarter, developed more, and in between starts, I figure out things to work on. And there's always stuff that you can improve on no matter what. If you think you're perfect, then you should be in the MLB.
Yeah.
Or that's simple as like even the MLB guys find stuff to work on. You can even see like Scherzer, like he doesn't even have a baseball and he'll just do dry mechanics. Like there was a video of Kershaw, I think it was in the World Series, where after one of the games, end of the game 4, he was starting the next game. He actually walked out on the mound and stood on the mound for like a brief second or two just to visualize. Like those guys are always visualizing. Like I'll visualize my starts the night before. Like if I'm starting the next day, like I'll go to bed visualizing scenarios in my head, running through it, so I'm always prepared.
Right.
And that's kind of the main thing. It's like you can always pick up something like whenever I'm sick or if I'm not playing, like I'll watch baseball highlights from certain guys, just kind of be like, hey, like run scenarios through your head. That just so once it comes to real motion, you don't have to worry or think. You just react.
Absolutely. That's huge. Like instead of like sitting on the bench and kind of like bullshit with your teammates, even though in baseball it's kind of like the thing, you can kind of like pull pranks in the dugout and it's all good fun.
Yeah.
But the word you used was maturing, and I think that's huge. And a lot of people don't pick that up until later on, and being able to sit there and actually be able to watch and like take in more from the game. I think that's like huge. Like that, you mentioned that. That's great.
Yeah, and then the one thing that I noticed too, the jump from going to Division 3 school to pro ball was like you saw it in college ball. Everyone's always like rah rah rah, rowdy, talking shit, talking smack, and just trying just to talk shit. And meanwhile, when you're in pro ball, no one talks shit unless like someone's actually trying to hurt someone.
Yeah.
And like in pro ball, they just go about their business and do their thing. Where if it's one thing, if you're trying to get in the other, if you see the other pitchers start like kind of like showing like body expressions, like oh, like he's frustrated, he's in his own head. Even the pros, you start to notice like the other team will start bickering just to feed into pissing off that pitcher even more. And I think that's where some college teams forget to they don't realize that if you see a guy that you can get into his own head, you get into his own head. Like it's one of those like don't poke the sleeping bear almost.
Yeah.
So it's like if you see the other team is down with energy, there's no need for you to rah 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 and get them fired up. Like let them sleep, let them be quiet, let them be slow, and then you take advantage of
Yep.
that. And like that was another thing I learned too, like just from like the mental side of the game. That's where the mental side of things becomes such a key component in the game.
Yeah.
Like you can take Michael Jordan and Kobe's like mental philosophies and easily incorporate into baseball or any other sport there is. It's
Right.
just trying to be tougher than everyone else.
Gotcha. Absolutely. That's all I got, man. That's all the questions I got. I appreciate it. Um,
Right?
awesome insight. I really appreciate you coming on, and feel
Of
better,
course.
dude. I mean, you sound great, but I can't believe you got diagnosed. But
Yeah, terrible timing.
yeah, listen, man,
But
you sound great, and you'll be good, man. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
hey, thank you for having me.
All right, signing off.